So, welcome everyone to this special webinar in which we celebrate Joost de Valk's long career in SEO thus far, and everything he's meant to Joost the company and to us personally in the last 12 years, for some a bit longer. This webinar will take you through a decade of SEO, which obviously includes last month's news. My name is Taco Verdonschot and I'm today's co-host. But let me first introduce today's host. She's the current head of strategy and former CEO of Joost. She's the founder of Joost Academy. And if that wasn't impressive enough, she's today's ultimate subject matter expert. Please welcome Marieke van der Rakt. And next is our red-headed miracle, the man who recites schema.org in his sleep. And when discussing SEO, he's either right or people just agree with him. So please give it up for the renowned and infamous John O'Elderson. And finally, the man of the hour, the man who named his company after himself because he would never hire any staff anyway. It's too much hassle. The man who allowed me into his company is saying goodbye to the company he founded. Well, not entirely, as he'll stay with us as an SEO expert and consultant. And despite the fact that he doesn't really need an introduction, let me introduce him. Joost de Valk, father of 4. Joost de Valk, husband of 1. Joost de Valk, founder of Joost. Joost de Valk, speaker at all the renowned conferences in SEO and WordPress. Joost de Valk, creator of WordPress SEO, nowadays known as Joost SEO. Joost de Valk, contributor to at least 28 WordPress releases. Joost de Valk, former head of marketing of WordPress. Joost de Valk, former CEO of Joost. Joost de Valk, advisor to WordProof. Joost de Valk, former chief product officer at Joost. Joost de Valk, former owner of CSS3.info. Joost de Valk, blogger, owner, and general pain in the ass at webrichtpijn.nl. Joost de Valk, the man who built the team that made Joost to what it is today. And last but not least, Joost de Valk, the man whose contributions to the internet we're celebrating today. So now let's travel back in time to see what SEO was like before Joost. Marieke, take it away.
Wow.
Yeah, so this webinar is a bit for you. And so I would like to take a bit of a trip down memory lane and see whether you know how the SEO landscape looked like when we were when you just started Yoast. So what was SEO? What was SEO like in 20? What was it?
2010?
20 too long ago. Let's not name the exact year because it'll only date me. What was it like? So we had SEO plugins for WordPress, and
all-in-one SEO was already there.
Yeah, they were. They had millions of installs already, and there was some. Well, there was generally some idea of what SEO looked like, but there was far more discussion about technical SEO than we have today. So many more things that people weren't sure about or that we were still figuring out with Google. And then, well, over time, that was mostly fixed, I think. I think a lot of that was Google being a bit more clear on what they wanted.
This was before Twitter, right? So there weren't really communication channels with Google. There was a lot of forums and it was all a bit vague. So yeah, there was never any confirmation on anything, which now we take for granted a bit, I think.
What did you do in 2010, Jono? Were you even out of college?
It's such a long time ago right now. I think at the time I was working at a web development agency and we were working on a .NET CMS that I was fighting with developers to try and get basic stuff in, like, can we have a canonical URL tag and can we have XML sitemaps? And they were saying it's going to take a week to build an XML sitemap and that will cost the client 20,000 euros and we just can't justify it. And, oh yeah, can you prove that this is worthwhile? And of course, again, there's no way to validate that any of this is meaningful. So yeah, it was really Wild West.
And so did Google change? Did Google's mission change? Did Google's evilness change?
Well, in terms of organic search, I don't think, no. So Canonical was released in 2010, I think. Somewhere around that, 2012 maybe. I think it's probably slightly later than I actually think it was.
2012. I thought it was earlier than that as well. Wow.
No, yeah, but I remember because the video that Matt made introducing it had me in it because I had actually built the Magento and Drupal and WordPress extensions for it.
Now, what about the content side? Because Panda and Penguin weren't released back then. So
No, there was a lot more spam.
Well, a lot more spam, yeah.
Although to be fair, if I look at the search results right now, they're not much better than they were back then.
But you could get away with writing white words on a white background.
Well, that sort of stuff, yeah. They were slowly getting better at fixing that sort of stuff back in the day. There was a bit more cloaking. There was a bit more naughtiness in general. Also because nobody knew what was naughty really yet. So no, it was different. And at the same time, so the technical SEO basics didn't change all that much in the since then. It's just that we got a lot more clarity indeed on what works, what doesn't work. I think it's one of the things we added. I had pretty good connections to a lot of people at Google, so I just started emailing and asking, okay, so how does this work exactly? And let me fix it. And then I created it in Yoast SEO, these defaults. And honestly, especially for the WordPress world, I think most people just followed our defaults.
So what would have happened if you didn't start that company? If you didn't, just maybe someone else did. But what would SEO be if Yoast hadn't existed?
It's funny, but there's a lot of these things where I just set random numbers for some things that then became gospel. So we talk about 300 words for an article all the time. That's not something Google ever said. It's something I put in. I was looking at the Moz still did big research back then on the SEO ranking factors, and I basically was using what was in the ranking factors as input for what Yoast SEO did. And
that's a good way.
Yeah,
makes sense.
And I think someone else would have done that too. But it's always interesting to see in the WordPress and in the SEO world how things become rules when they're not. So
what do you think, Jono? Because Yoast is it's just
I think we can see how it plays out, because we see now a huge resurgence in people having new content management systems and fancy JavaScript kit, and there's a wave of these new platforms and systems, and they're all rubbish. Like, some of them are really fast, some of them are really easy to use, some of them are really privacy centric, and none of them get enough of those things right to be viable out the box. And this is exactly where we were 10, 12 years ago. There were a slew of options you could use to build a website, whether you're going to hand code it, whether you're going to use something off the shelf. And all of them, you would have to put hundreds of hours of heavy engineering in to get it to a point where it kind of met base standards. And now we take all of that stuff for granted. I mean, I see quite regularly people like John Moo from Google tweeting and saying technical SEO is much easier nowadays. The platforms are getting better. Don't worry about crawling and sitemaps. But that's not true, because outside of WordPress, it's still pretty terrible, except for where Yoast SEO fixes it. So like it looks like technical SEO is largely a solved problem, but it's only because there are thousands of small things inside that we fix that now accounts for so much of the web that it looks like all those problems have gone away. It's normalized those kinds of standards. Like having an XML sitemap is now something you'd expect, but 10 years ago, it was a week's work for even like a basic website. So yeah, I think the world without Yoast is a bit scary.
So I don't know whether that wouldn't have happened if we weren't there, but I do think that we.
You never know that, so
No.
I understand.
But in general, still right now, if you use a very expensive CMS, let's say you use Adobe's stuff, you'll still be spending tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to get it to the level of SEO that you get WordPress at just by installing a plugin. And this baffles me, but I think that will have to change over time. And some of the competing platforms are definitely doing quite well. So Wix, for instance, is doing quite well. They are actually building a lot of SEO features, and they're doing it nicely. I think Squarespace is a bit behind on that, but there's a couple of these platforms that are absolutely trying and doing those things. And in a way, that is democratizing publishing in its own form. So I'm very happy to see that.
Okay. Well, it was nice talking to you about SEO before Yoast. And I would now like to take a trip down memory lane with you, Yoast. And see how the company grew. So what you built over those 12 years. So let's look at some highlights of the past 12 years. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see the very, very beginning. And that's even before you started, Yoast. In 2006, you both started doing SEO as well as WordPress. And do you remember what that was like, what that time was like?
I do. It was a very interesting time. I had just started a job in SEO, literally a job, because I came from a slightly different background. I was doing sales in the hosting market before that.
And you needed a new job.
I needed a new job because of this small kid here, and I wanted something closer to home.
Yeah. And then we read something about search engine optimization.
Yeah, and it looked incredibly nice. And I learned a lot in those first years. And as I learned, I started blogging, and I decided to.
I think we have a picture of that.
I started blogging in.
You were an SEO consultant.
Yeah, I was working at One to Market, which has a different logo, and everything is different about that company now.
But you do see like the avatar, which wasn't made by our own Aaron, but it was already there.
I'd already made that, and so I started blogging, and I started, branding myself a bit.
Yeah.
I think actually this Affiliate Dag, or the one after that, was the first time I met Chris Jones, a good friend of ours, who I invited to come and speak there. And I started building WordPress sites.
Yeah.
And as I was doing that, I was learning about SEO and applying that to WordPress. And
WordPress wasn't that big back then.
No, WordPress was tiny.
Do you remember why you chose WordPress?
Because it was easier to use than Drupal, and it was open source, and I liked that. And it actually looked more SEO friendly. And my site actually looked slightly better than this, but the screenshots lack some of the CSS, because that's the way of archive.org.
And so in 2010, and that's when you started the company, this is what the Yoast headquarters looked like. And it actually looks pretty nice, because you can't see, but at the end of this picture, there was a washing machine, and we didn't even have a proper room. You were just in it was a concrete floor.
Yeah,
it was our attic. It was nothing.
No, it was absolutely nothing. We put that window in because there was no window before that. So yeah, it was but it was good in a way. It was very nice, and it's it's very typical because I'm now full circle. I'm back in the
You're
attic.
back in the attic. That's true. But a different attic. Yeah,
Yeah.
we've moved houses ever since then. But you had 1 million users in 2010. Your WordPress plugins, because it wasn't one plugin. I think,
No,
back
yeah,
then.
no. At that point, it was one plugin already. I'd merged my multiple plugins into one, and I hadn't even launched the 1.0 yet, and yet people were using it because it was better than what they were seeing out there.
What was that like, having so many users? But did you make any money? I know the answer.
No, I didn't make any money. It was nice and painful because, unlike everyone listening today, some people on the web are just not so nice, and demanding support for a free product that, well, I couldn't deliver. So it was it was hard in a way, and hard to figure out, like, how do I do this? How do I navigate this in a way that I make money and I can keep on doing what I want to do. So
in 2010 you started Yoast, but what did you make money of? Because it wasn't plugins.
no, it was consultancy. I was doing consulting for eBay and for The Guardian and for Facebook. So I was working for big companies.
Yeah.
And I was doing site reviews, which I was doing to keep myself available.
But this
to,
is the website.
Yeah, so this is the plugin so the branding is already there, right?
Yeah.
You can already see some of the branding and some of the things. It grew, and then in 2012, the plugin. So someone said you should start making money from the plugin.
I felt that maybe there would be something there. You were just doing this thing as a hobby, but you had 1 million users.
Yeah, and you are, of course, absolutely right.
Yeah.
So
so this is our team, or your team, because I wasn't. Well, I am there because you see my avatar, but I had a day job back then because we were like a bit afraid that if we both dove in, then we wouldn't have. We already had 3 children back then, so there had to be someone bringing in the bacon. So so I did. I think I was at the same time as Taco came. In 2013 or something.
Yeah.
But back then you did site reviews, consultancy, and maybe a bit of affiliate.
I did quite a lot of affiliate, actually. It is what paid for our first 3 or 4 employees. We stopped doing that later on for all sorts of reasons. But and then in 2014, when you joined,
right after I joined.
A while later, we actually released a premium plugin, which we'd been working on for far too long. But the thing is, if you keep me working on stuff and Marieke isn't there, nothing ever gets finished.
Well, and it was a big thing not taking anything out of our free product, so we never did that. Still don't do that. So we had to come up with something worthwhile for people to pay for it.
Yeah.
Other than support.
Yeah, which they did. So it was all so it was good and fun and nice and well. And then the team grew a bit. So in 2013 there was like 5 of us, and then we were a few more, and I was a few pounds more in 2015.
Yeah, we just got a 4th child there. You can still see that you have some of the baby
it wasn't in me. Come on.
I cut myself from this picture.
And then the company grew a tiny bit more. So in 2017 we were like this, and then in 2019 there was even more people.
And we now have even more people.
Yeah, it's I think we're more than double of this now, and it always surprises me because it just exploded. And
so how was that? Because you weren't supposed to hire anybody.
Yeah, that sort of went wrong, didn't it?
Yeah. What was that like?
So it's super rewarding because it's super cool to see this all happening. It's also stressful. And as I found out as we got bigger and bigger, managing people or managing large groups of people was not necessarily what I was born to do.
Inspiring people, you were born
I like doing that. So I like leading. I don't like managing. It's
Mhm.
two very different skill sets, and don't confuse the two. Um, so, but it was good fun. I mean, we had a lot of fun doing this, and we're still having fun. I
Mhm.
mean, I did, and we'll talk about that a bit later. But I'm not going away entirely because I'm still having fun. But I also, well, I'm sort of done with this. I want to do other things. But yeah, no, it has been a very nice journey with these people, and then with these people especially.
Yeah, so our board changed in 2021, and Chaya joined us. So you were the founder, but as of I think 2015, there were always other board members involved. So part of our shares were sold to
Yeah,
Omar, Thijs, Chaya.
yeah. And we did well. I mean, we didn't grow just in terms of people, but also in terms of users and money and revenue and everything. And of course, those had to, well, keep up. And I think we're now at like 12.5 million users or so worldwide, which is to me just baffling. And we're also at the point where I think Yoast as a company can continue without me. I won't be going away entirely, but it's sort of reached a maturity level where it can do that, and I'm very happy to see that.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't agree that we could do it without you, but I think we can do it with you, having you here every other week, because you're pretty much a product genius, and but we'll try to keep that. I made a joke that you're like that we'll make orange juice out of you. So
Yeah.
that we only take the part that's really important and squeeze it into one day every 2 weeks.
Yeah. So the funny part here is that people always who don't know me and then see my Dutch first name Joost always call me Juiced. So
well, it's pronounced as Joost.
Yeah,
and that's why the company is called Joost.
Yeah,
but so now I call you Juice.
Yes. So now she's making juice concentrate out of me. What can I say? It works. But yeah, no, that was in a few minutes the history of Yoast, I guess.
I think so too. So we'll now dive into what's happening in the SEO world, and then I'll come back and talk to you about.
I'm much more comfortable talking about this because this isn't about me.
No, but I will come back and talk to you about what you're going to do next. So you're not off the hook yet.
That's the hard part. Okay. No, yeah, but you can stay around. It's fun anyway. I see that Jono is joining me again already. So there he is.
I'm back. Hey, I'm allowed back in. That's nice. That was lovely.
So yeah, we are going to do what we normally do in this webinar and talk about SEO news for a bit. And yes, the recording of this will be available afterwards, etc., because that question inevitably comes up. We are going to do it slightly faster than normal, so we're going to take about 20 minutes tops, if not less.
I think we can do it in half that. This is all fairly straightforward stuff. There's nothing groundbreaking.
It is in many ways because there's not that much news.
Yep.
As though everyone was shocked by other news. Now, if you hear any terms about SEO that you don't know, what I can really recommend you do is look for them on Yoast.com. Just search for them, and you'll probably end up in our academy. So join our academy if you're not on there yet to learn about SEO and to make sure that you do know the things that we talk about. So Google has once again been playing with the visual results on mobile, and they've added even more pictures.
Yep, pretty much. Yeah, we've seen a whole bunch of iterations of this sort of thing, but we see that increasingly certain types of searches are becoming more and more and more and more image-based and video-based as well, obviously, but images are where it's at the moment. If you're not already actively doing image optimization, i.e. thinking about your file size and your file format, and where they are, where they are on the page, and the types of images you're using, and alt attributes and all that stuff. Definitely do. We've got a whole bunch of articles on Yoast.com. There's stuff in Academy. Go and learn about how to make the most out of your images, because if you're not actively doing that, you're going to miss out to competitors who are. This is the future. Images are a thing.
Images have been a thing for the last 5 years or so. Get with the program if you haven't. This, on the other hand, is actually very cool. So you can now search for things on an image and then add text to actually differentiate those search results a bit.
Yeah, so the example they had was something like taking a photo of this dress, in fact, and saying this in blue or this in green, and it merges those contexts. I think this is a huge step towards the kind of Star Trek computer that Google have always been wanting to be. It's going to require us to gradually learn to think about how we search, because like the way we search is we open up a search bar and we type in some words. Increasingly, we need to think about Google as a personal assistant that helps us solve our problems. So there's a little bit of a learning curve, but you can imagine things like showing it a product and saying, find me the cheapest one of these, or showing it a landmark and saying, where is this? Or even showing it a photo of you at a party that you maybe don't remember in detail and saying, who is this person? And suddenly this becomes hugely powerful and a whole new way of searching. Really cool.
Yeah, it is super cool. It is also, it opens up an entirely new avenue for optimizing your content. And at the same time, it's probably not really new in that regard. It just needs to you just need to make sure that you have the correct content around your stuff.
And how might you do that?
Yeah, you might do that with structured data. And they talked a bit in the Search Off the Record podcast, which we've talked about before, but it is interesting. If you're really deep into search, then you should probably listen to this. It's people from Google talking about search.
Yeah, it's really nice. It's a little bit off the record, but a little bit kind of insider official and official news. This episode was really interesting. So obviously, we've talked a lot about rich result formats and schema and Google search results. They use schema.org and structured data to power all of those rich results, but it's really the tip of the iceberg of a much bigger set of technology and tooling. In Yoast SEO, we do and create and output a ton of schema and structured data, which isn't necessarily explicitly used by Google because we think it's valuable to do so. And there's a whole bunch of cool stuff in there, and it enables a whole bunch of futuristic technology and stuff, yada, yada. Google keep almost saying, and now kind of have, that stuff is worth doing, that they do read and use stuff beyond just the explicit stuff they support, that it is worthwhile trying to really describe what a page is about. It might help them understand when there's complexity. Like, so you were saying just now with your name, we have Yoast.com, the website, which was founded by Yoast the person. And that person is also an author on that website that works for the business. Yeah, like, these things are complicated and overlapping, and structured data helps us differentiate, disambiguate those in a way that helps Google understand. That sort of stuff is super powerful.
We'll put a link to this in the show notes, but maybe someone can share the link to Search Off the Record in the chat as well, because I see people are asking for it. Now, Google has clarified its webmaster guidelines to say that you cannot automatically generate content. Funnily enough, they say automatically generate. They don't say AI generate or whatever. They say automatically generate to manipulate search rankings. So you can automatically generate content to manipulate users. You just can't do it to manipulate search rankings.
Or manipulate stock markets or global climate. Yeah, this is a defensive play from them, isn't it? We've talked a lot on this show, this podcast, this thing over the last few months about the rise of automated content generation. And there's a lot of slightly nefarious SEOs rubbing their hands in glee that they can say, I'm going to have 20,000 pages on my website where I can just plug in a few keywords and have some magical robot spit out some passable text. And yeah, you can. It's not going to be great. It's not going to be creative. It's not going to have new ideas. It's not going to tell stories. It's not going to convince your users. It'll fill a gap. But Google are already now saying, look, this really isn't a good thing. They may change and evolve that stance as it becomes nuanced. But yeah, it's don't go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, it's always fun to see them do that. Now, this was actually fun. YouTube adding search insights, giving us keyword data.
Yeah, who knew, right? After years of Google, every other bit of Google removing keyword data, now YouTube are opening up a whole bunch of stats, and you can see of the people who viewed my videos, what types of things did they search for over the last month. And I think what's really interesting about this is it's aggregated over the whole month in multiple territories, and it's only English at the moment, but it will be in more languages. So yeah, YouTube is like still, I think, the second biggest search engine in the world. And we've had very limited insight into how do people use this, how might we optimize, and they'll do things like say, look, there's a whole bunch of people searching for this kind of keyword. There's no video results. There's no good video results. And you go, aha, okay, here's my content strategy. This is really cool. This is rolling out the end of April, they say, so you might not have this yet, but give it a few days.
Very cool. Okay. And then Microsoft. It's always a bit give or take whether we have a Microsoft section at all in our news webinar. But today we have one because they did one interesting thing this month. So here they are. And they've actually done something pretty cool, which I think Google should just copy.
Yeah.
If you see a Wikipedia result, they now give you this very rich result from Wikipedia immediately. So you don't have to actually click towards Wikipedia, but you can already see like which bits do I want to read.
Yeah, I really like that. We say that Microsoft should compete with Google by differentiating, and this is different. It's good.
Yeah, it is. Well, it's nice. We'll see where it goes. And then WordPress news. This was something Jono and I discussed, and I don't know whether there is a good answer to this, but what people are trying to do at WooCommerce very hard is to actually make WooCommerce work with the block editor in a nice way. It's very hard because you want to get a WYSIWYG, so what you see is what you get type interface, but you also need to have all this product data. And they are trying to combine it into one screen in such a way that it's still usable. And they're sort of succeeding, but still not.
I tell you, just looking at it, it looks dense. Like I've really, really come to like the block editor for content, for structured content with paragraphs and blocks and layouts. But that does feel like, it feels like the product pages and heavily structured pages have a different layer. Like there's an information layer here around product availability and variations that isn't necessarily the same type of workflow as authoring content, and trying to smush all those together really, I think, demonstrates all of the product problems that Gutenberg and the block editor has, that because this is hard, this is hard because it doesn't really know what it's trying to be. Is it trying to be a perfect representation of the page the user gets? Is it a set of content controls, something in between? It's just a bit messy. Hopefully they'll answer some of that as they progress with it, but yeah, it's not great yet.
But kudos for trying. It is
Yep.
it is a very hard challenge. This was interesting. So we discussed last time we were on together about how every social platform on the web is adding commercial capabilities because they need the commercial data to actually keep on advertising. And then Pinterest brings out a WooCommerce extension so that people can buy stuff from your WooCommerce store on Pinterest.
Yeah, and they say specifically they're trying to create a more shoppable platform, which I think is almost exactly the wording you used last month, which is a bit grim. Yeah, so you it automatically uploads and streams all of your products into Shopify as rich shoppable pins, so that when people are in that ecosystem, they can just see and browse your stuff. But like at this point, now we've got Twitter shops and Pinterest is now entirely e-commerce. I would like a social platform where it's not trying to get me to buy stuff constantly. Maybe one that's not owned by Elon Musk as well. We'll see how that goes.
I was just going to say, maybe Elon can fix this for us.
Yeah, we shall see. Yeah, if you didn't catch that, as of I think today, Elon Musk owns Twitter, so that'll be fun.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Yeah. In terms of things that scare the hell out of me, this is probably the bit that scares me most. Can you explain what this is, Jono?
Yeah, this is super cool. So we've talked a few times about GPT-3 and automated content creation and that kind of AI ecosystem. This is that, but for images. So this is what happens when you feed DALL-E 2 a phrase, a bowl of soup that looks like a monster knitted out of wool. And obviously you can change bits of that phrasing and do what you want with it. And it generates photorealistic, indistinguishable from reality, or I hope I never meet that soup, photographs and images. And not only that, it can also edit existing photos. So you can say, I think they have an example where there's a beautiful apartment and a landscape, and it says, add a flamingo. and now there's a photo with a flamingo in it, and you would never know the difference. And I think as tooling, this can be phenomenal. They talk about, for example, if I'm writing a blog post and I need to articulate an idea visually, I can just go generate me something that shows this in a way that might have licensing agreements or overhead or time or money implications otherwise. Super powerful. Is it Terminator and Skynet and the end of the world? Maybe, but we'll see. Again, hopefully this isn't used for too much evil. Definitely an issue and a risk with deep fakes. There's all sorts of interesting legal and political questions around protection and should these images be watermarked? And that's all a bit grey, but pretty cool tech.
It is very cool tech, but it is, yeah, Hans Christian is saying in the chat, you can pretty much generate any stock photo you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, you can, and it's a bit weird, but yeah. Yep. We'll see where this goes. Now, I like this. They have DuckDuckGo has a browsing app for Mac in beta. I'm very curious what this will look like, because DuckDuckGo has been gradually improving. I've actually, just before the show, I did some ego searches, as one does, to test whether a search engine works, and it's actually fairly good.
Yeah, it's getting there, and I have questions about some of their philosophy, and I think that ads aren't necessarily as inherently evil as they might suggest for branding purposes, nor tracking necessarily. But yeah, it's good to remember that other search engines exist. They do have market share, and many of your users might not be using Google, which means they're not seeing quite the same thing. There are different things you might want to consider. Also, on the subject of other search engines, I don't think we've ever touched on this, but there's a huge amount of noise around you.com. I've been in their early beta for a while and playing with it. It's another very different model. Might be worth checking out if you as a searcher are looking for an alternative or you want to understand that kind of emerging landscape. Definitely worth exploring.
It's very fun to look at. Now, this was the news that had me proud of the EU once again on the legal side of things.
I miss being in the EU. Yeah. That was good.
Yeah, it's fun for all of us who are still inside its warm embrace. So the EU has new legislation out, the Digital Services Act, which isn't exactly out yet, but they've said some of the things that will be in there. And I really, really like some of the things they're saying that they want to do. One of the things is that they want Meta and Google and others to explain how their ranking algorithms work. And they also require of these services to offer a way to see results in that they are in a way that they are not personalized.
Yeah, which is really cool.
We used to be able to do that in Google and say disable personalized search, and I hope we get that back, because that was actually a better search result most of the time than my personalized search results.
Agreed. So I've just spotted Tim in the chat saying Google having to explain their algorithm. That does sound huge. I think this is a misleading headline. I think they will have to do that to a degree, but I think they will draw some vague diagrams representing general inputs and outputs. I don't think we'll get a slice of algebra. Never mind that that's probably not really how it works. We know that there are many, many, many small individual algorithms that interoperate in a machine learning system, yada, yada, yada. I think the more interesting thing about this is all the little details that are also alongside this, like the EU is making dark user interface patterns illegal. You cannot target based on ethnicity or religion. And they're introducing better controls around handling misinformation. There's routes for appeal for blocked content. There's legal better record keeping for transactions and interactions. This is a huge maturing point for the whole digital and digital marketing industry. I think it's going to be a landmark. And then also the US will be forced to follow, because kind of a lot of this ends up being global by default because it's based on where your consumers are. I think this is a huge deal. I have to see how people follow. What is my camera doing? It keeps sliding me across the screen.
It's very funny. Barry is saying in the chat that Google doesn't even understand their own algorithm.
Not a chance.
I think that is exactly the problem of where we're at. We shouldn't allow that to happen. We shouldn't allow it to happen to reach the point where we don't understand our own algorithms anymore. We have to be able to explain them and to explain how they work. Because if we're not, then what's to say that we're not actually discriminating against a whole group of people in a very weird way, or doing other stuff that we shouldn't be doing?
Yeah, so, you are almost certainly accidentally biasing against somebody as soon as you've got some flavor of machine learning, and you'd never know. You'd never spot it, which is even worse, because then you've got a whole population of people who are being unfairly
So-
treated. Finally, yep.
So I love this new law. We'll see where it goes. Then we have a tiny bit of Yoast news, really tiny, because we have a couple of releases out, but apparently there's other Yoast news that we're discussing today that's slightly bigger than this. As much as I like these releases and we've done some fun things. So I'd like to invite my lovely wife back.
Here I am.
Here she
I
comes.
never really left.
She never really left, other than sitting a chair to the left.
Yeah, but otherwise I was just
Yeah.
being pretty. It's
And
just
then
above
you
what I do.
had all sorts of hard questions for me.
Well, Joost, you're leaving, and you're leaving for the largest part. So, what are you going to do? Everybody wants to know, what are you going to do?
I don't know yet.
Oh,
So first of all,
yeah, first.
let me stop sharing my screen. That might actually not be needed. Oh wait, Taco's removed it already.
Yeah.
So first of all, I'll still be with Yoast one
Yes.
day every 2 weeks.
Yes, I know.
Which I like. I'll be advising some of the startups we've invested in together. This lovely person here is not just the head of strategy for Yoast, but also the head of strategy for our entire family. No, yeah, I'll probably be advising some of the startups we've invested in a bit more than I had before this, and other than that, I don't really know yet, but I do think that I'll end up building something new. As I said, I've come full circle. I'm back in an attic. It's slightly better looking than the one I started in 12 years ago, but I sort of think I can and want to do it again.
So are you aren't looking for a job?
I have been entertaining some conversations.
Okay, so you're just now looking around and seeing what will be next.
Yeah.
And will it be an SEO?
If I take a job, it probably will be, or related. That will definitely be on the web.
Yeah. Yeah, you never know. Maybe you're
I'm
going to
not
be a
suddenly
gardener.
becoming a gardener.
No.
No, I was thinking of the exact same thing, which is funny.
We have a really large garden. So
No, so but I don't know.
So, and if you look at Yoast and the SEO world, what are things that you think that will change? Not because you are leaving, but still, what's the future for SEO or for Yoast, the company?
Well, I think those things tie very much to all of this legislation that we just talked about.
Mm-hmm.
So the web is changing as it's becoming a bit more regulated. We saw that with GDPR already. It has had quite the effect on how people deal with users, and I think similarly this will change and have a quite deep effect on how people use services on the web, search being one of them. And that'll mean that SEO will have to adapt to some of these changes, probably. And some of that might be simple. Other bits of that might be a lot harder. But I'm very curious to see where it goes. But I think in general, it actually makes advertising harder, which makes organic search all the more interesting yet again to as a way of attracting visitors to your site.
Yeah, I think so. And will there be any chance of a political career? Asking for a friend.
So on the advisory side, yes. Me in actual politics, I think we have enough white, gray men in politics.
Yeah, but not
already.
who understand tech.
That is true, but yeah, I don't think that's necessarily something that I would want to do as a politician. I would, on the advisory side, absolutely. I'd love to.
Well,
to
you
do
know,
that.
I think so. Joost and I met actually in kind of this political a thing when we were just in high school.
European
Youth.
youth model parliament.
that.
Yeah.
So and we both always have had political aspirations. So it wouldn't surprise me if you would somehow ever choose like this. It would be something that suits you. And I agree that we have far too many white male gray people in our parliaments, but they don't understand tech, so I would forgive you.
Yeah. Well, you know what they say. If you put yourself forward as a candidate, you've already lost. So
Okay.
yeah.
Well, I think we now need Taco because
Yes,
it's time
I'm
for
here. Yeah, it definitely is time for Q&A. We do have a few questions, but if you have a question to Joost that you haven't asked and that you never dared to ask, now is the time. So use the ask a question section to post your questions to and keep it decent. So let's start with the one with the most upvotes. Do you have a favorite alternative to Google Analytics that you can recommend? That's free.
So I'll give you my version, and then Jono can talk about actual analytics. But for most sites on the web, you don't need analytics. You look at your Google Search Console, you look at your search insights there, and that's it, and it's plenty. Everything else is just rubbish anyway. Unless you're doing an e-commerce site, then you might want to have a bit more. But for most other sites, it's really not something that you actually need, or that actually helps you make better decisions. If you do want it, then I'd look at log-based stuff, but rather than JavaScript tracking stuff. But I just think that we've given far too many people analytics that they can't actually use.
What would Jono say?
Oh, annoyingly similar. I think that take all the energy you would have spent on picking a solution and work out what your tracking strategy is and realize that you probably need less than you think. If you do need something that's not Google Analytics, Matomo, that used to be Piwik, and Fathom seem to be leading the pack for alternatives. There's different pricing models across them. If you wait about 6 months, I'm expecting a much more sophisticated version of GA4 that will integrate and do server-side stuff through Tag Manager, which will allow you to do all the clever techie stuff in a much more privacy-friendly way. But that's going to require some pretty heavy engineering to set up. I think the days of just plugging in some JavaScript and harvesting fields of information that you never look at or use are gone. Work out what the business questions you really need to answer them are, and set up something basic.
That is a very clear answer from the both of you.
Yeah, it's funny in a way. Avinash, a good friend of mine who I met way back in the day, already said 10 years ago, you should be spending about 10% of your money and resources on tooling and 90% of your time on actually looking at the results.
Avinash works at Google.
Yeah.
He's not like Superman.
No,
his name alone is not enough.
But I very much agree with that. I mean, if you want to do this, spend your time on actually looking at the results.
All right. Marika, I think this question is for you as today's expert. What was the worst aspect of working with Joost?
The worst? Well, you know, at one point in time, we made this decision that I was going to be CEO. Well, before that, he was the CEO. And so we got through it because we're still here, but that was pretty hard. I won't say that this is your fault, because it's not, but it's very difficult to stay. I know that now, because now I am on board as a CEO, and then, oh no, I'm as a former CEO and still working in the company. That's hard. So that first phase or first year when I was CEO and you were not, that was hard.
It is definitely hard. Yeah, no, it stepping down from a role like that is a hard thing to do.
Yeah. And
it's also very also very necessary. But
Yeah, well, apart from that, I think we are a really good team. So I'm dreading the fact that you're not here anymore. Not only because you fixed my computer, but especially because we are like a really good team, work together really, really well. So we're going to see how that will be.
I'll just start something new. You can join me there.
Yeah, I'll still see you at home.
Joost, I'm sorry, I have to interrupt. You're not getting her. We want to keep Marieke. You can have her after hours, but Marieke is ours.
No, the company needs her far more than it needs me. So that's absolutely true.
I don't know if that's true. But we're not going to talk about
Alright.
that. Do you have any other
Yes.
questions? to tackle?
Yes, plenty. A more technical question, I would say. And Jono already sort of jumped the gun by writing it an answer a bit, but approximately what percentage of website traffic, especially among new users, should be direct traffic?
So those spikes, there's more to that question. I've seen the question now, and the person asking Rod is saying that he has had spikes of direct traffic. Well, probably those spikes of direct traffic are anything but spikes of direct traffic. They're probably spikes of traffic coming from a source that your analytics package just doesn't recognize. This is one of the reasons why looking at analytics is absolutely bonkers, because most of the data that you're looking at is just plain wrong. It might be that this is Facebook traffic that's not tagged as Facebook traffic. It might be that this is Twitter traffic that is not tagged as Twitter traffic. There's loads and loads of traffic that you are getting, but you don't know where it's coming from. And you're probably receiving less direct traffic than you're actually thinking you are. The question is, does any of this help you? It could be all sorts of things. But how does knowing that you're having that traffic help you? If it doesn't help you, if it doesn't make you sell stuff, or if it doesn't make you reach the goals of your site, then why is even knowing it important?
That's why if you can't answer, what would I do differently if I knew this? Like, what specific actions would I take differently if I had a physical number in front of me that told me the real answer? Then you don't need to invest time in it. If it's not going to change your behavior, it's just nice to know. And nice to know is the enemy of progress.
Yeah, KPIs. If a KPI changes and you don't know what you're doing based on it going down or up, then it's not a KPI. Then it's just rubbish. So, yeah.
Whenever I think, so I'm a researcher, and a researcher asks a question and then looks into the data. So, and if you do it the other way around, you get data driven, which is apparently in the SEO world a good word, but it's like a bad thing in science, because you never should be data driven. You should be theoretical driven or question driven. So I always think that you need to know what you want to know and then look at your data.
Yep.
Yeah, which isn't to say that looking at your data to see, hey, are there weird patterns here, is a bad thing in itself.
Yeah, but you ask the question.
Yeah.
Very nicely.
But it's also that at that point you need to know that data so well before you can do that. And I don't know whether it's worth the time actually.
Then you ask, are there any things that are different from the normal pattern? That's a really good research question.
Yeah. So I found a huge bug in indexing tools a couple of weeks ago just by looking at patterns. I was really happy to see that happen, but it's the sort of thing where you see a lot of data and you just know what the data needs to look like, and then you see, hey, this pattern is different. But it's very uncommon for people to be able to do that with analytics. And honestly, Google Analytics has made it incredibly hard. Barry had just said in the chat, remind me to never argue with Marieke. I do so on a daily basis. I usually lose. But it does make you a smarter person in the end.
Does it?
Sometimes.
Oh. Well, it's not that you just talk too much. You're not used to thinking about before you say something. Well,
I don't need to. I'm a white male.
Yeah.
All right. Before we get into this, I have a very different question. As a person who's been working in the field of selling WordPress plugins for many years, how do you see the future of this field, Joost?
I think it's harder to get into now than it was when I started. There's a lot of people who have their defensible territories, companies that are way bigger than they were when we all started. So now if you want to build an SEO plugin, you suddenly have to compete with a company that has 150 people like ours, and a company backing them with billions in the bank. And that's true for pretty much every large section of WordPress.
No, but if you come up with something new, there are also a lot of opportunities.
There's loads of room for smaller sections of things. I don't know, honestly. I think Gutenberg has opened up a lot of different avenues. I think in a way Elementor has done that too. Opened up a lot of new ways in which people can use and make money from WordPress. And we'll have to see where that goes. I was very bullish for a while on WordPress reaching 50% market share, and now I'm slowly starting to wonder whether it will. But we'll have to see.
All right. Yeah, so there's a last-minute addition by the person asking the question, who says, my plugin is a user registration plugin. WordPress doesn't have this plugin.
The user registration space in WordPress is a bit weird. All of the big plugins are bundled in with loads of features and loads of overhead, and they all come with lots of kind of freemium upsell stuff. There's definitely space for a good, simple user login plugin, so worth exploring, and then find some slightly more elegant upsell routes than buy all the add-on features, which just gets very heavy.
Someone asks how many of our users are free and premium. We should have more premium users.
Yeah, it is definitely. So you need quite if you're going to freemium model like we did, then you need quite a large group of free users before you'll be able to.
I think we have a few 100,000.
Yeah. So before you'll be able to make money and living off of your premium income.
And it's different from other premium plugins. We know that because we've talked to people, and we're not doing that very well. And I think we're also our biggest competitor ourselves, because people, of course, there are other SEO plugins, but people tend to buy premium and then go back to free. So we're our own biggest competitor. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. We're almost out of time. It's almost a full hour.
That was it.
This is it.
Freedom.
Freedom.
Yeah, we need to play the song now. We can't, because then it'll be taken down on YouTube.
Yeah, where's your soundboard, Joost?
I will not miss that. I will not miss that at all.
So I didn't bring my soundboard. I'm in the office now, as you can see, and didn't bring any of my tech kit that would make all of this more fun. I'll be back someday.
And you'll be back as a guest, right? You'll be back as a guest if Jono wants you there, because Jono, you're now the big star of our SEO news webinar.
Wow, put some pressure on that.
Yeah.
I'm going to get a soundboard.
Yeah. No, you don't. I do think that this is a nice timing to also mention Edwin, who's been a driving force of the SEO News webinar behind the scenes for all the episodes so far.
Yeah. Basically, he's smart, so we get to look smart. That's what it.
That's what Edwin does.
Yeah.
Yeah. So big shout out to him. Marieke, thank you so much for hosting today. Jono, as always, you are amazing, even though Barry doesn't always agree with that.
That's fine.
And Joost, do you have any final words for your friends in the audience?
Yeah, I love you all, and bye-bye.
Famous last words.
I'm loving it. All right, so if you haven't already, there's a flashy button at the bottom of your screen where you can sign up for the SEO News webinar newsletter. And of course, we hope to see all of you in Porto early June for WordCamp Europe.
You'll
Oh,
be
yeah.
there as well.
Because,
I'll be there too.
Yeah.
Come say hi.
yeah. All right. Thanks all, and
See you
see
in
you
a bit.
next month.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.